Throughout history, there have been brave citizens willing to stand up for what they believed in and challenge injustices in their society. Their willingness has sparked many changes in recent history, including women's suffrage and civil rights. This is no different in the modern age.
However, with time, society, and our way of life twists and contorts, the methods of activism is no exception to the changing tides of the world. With the advent of the internet, people believe that there are new and more effective ways for activism to be both executed and spread. But just how effective is internet activism? In what ways does it modify the way we make change? While many people find the online version of activism to be the next step in the progression of social change, others find the internet merely seems more helpful than it actually is. They conclude that to change society, someone has to be in the field risking their lives. How much do you think you can change the world through the internet?
So I guess that's a really big question. There's a lot you can do, I think, with changing the world. There's a lot of different opportunities in which you can communicate with other people. Because I mean, one person, I guess, could really start something and encourage other people to do something, and that kind of creates like an avalanche effect. So I think through the internet, one person can have a voice to many, and that can spark change.
Do you think social media is an effective vehicle to dispense social justice? Why?
So for the most part, I do think that social media specifically is a good way in which we can invoke social justice, being someone who's aware of a lot of the social issues that we face on a daily basis. I do think that, yes, there are many opportunities in which people can educate themselves through social media, by sharing a Facebook post, making people aware of what's going on in the world, so that people can kind of take a step outside of their bubble or their echo chamber, really.
Do you think strong bonds can be formed over the internet while joining together under a single cause?
Yeah, I think if people share certain values, especially like values about important things like social justice, they can become closer.
What is the difference between activism in the 1960s, fighting for African American rights, and online activists today?
The activists in the 1960s had to stand up and show their faces and tell the world this is what they believed in, whereas now it's a lot easier to hide behind a computer and like bully someone in YouTube comments about your point of view. And even if you are right, it's so much easier to just sort of comment instead of actually like have to face them and like do protests and stuff.
While younger citizens usually find internet activism to be a useful addition to the arsenal of protesters and social rights activists, others, typically older members of society, seem to think this is not the case.
In Gladwell's article, A Small Change, he's extremely critical of internet activism, claiming that the internet does not assist activism since it only establishes weak ties, while activism in actuality develops brotherhoods that are loyal enough to battle injustice. He claims that activism must be done in the fashion it was done in the 60s, with people risking their lives and careers to give African American population the rights they deserved. Referencing movements like the Coney 2012 incident, it is easy to say that most forms of activism over the internet do not cause much change and fade out of the public eye.
Despite the many articles, many legitimate points about how activism on the ground provides familial ties that bond activists together, it is impossible to say that internet activism is constantly ineffective. The ALS Ice Bucket Challenge informed a huge amount of the populace or ALS and raised over $115 million for the cause within an 8-week period during 2014. And this campaign was run entirely through social media. Despite what critics may say, the internet has changed the way activism can be spread and organized, even if strong bonds cannot be created over it.
So, if internet activism can be effective, but also has negatives, what are the strengths of internet activism? While it may not be as passionate as the earlier forms of activism, the strength of internet activism is its networking capabilities. With the advent of the internet age, the voices of ordinary citizens can be heard by millions of ears all over the globe. While speaking to people over social media cannot usually convince them to drop their careers and put their lives on the line, they can spread a message, and sometimes, for the ALS activists, for example, that's all it takes.
The new abilities that the internet grants us cannot be discredited for changes in society, because something of that caliber inherently changes people's ways of life simply by existing. However, despite the pros of both normal and social media activism, the most effective way to cause change in the modern age is to combine the two methods. For example, the Arab Spring was an extremely successful campaign for activists who seemingly did the impossible by overthrowing oppressive governments. Their efforts were only possible due due to them using both social media and dedicated supporters at the events. As Sam Gustin pointed out, social media have become the pamphlets of the 21st century, a way that people who are frustrated with the status quo can organize themselves with a coordinated protest, and in the case of Egypt, revolution. In conclusion, internet activism is extremely effective at establishing communication with millions around the world to assist a cause. But in order to execute the change, there must be activism in the real world, ready to give up their time and well-being for what's right. So the most effective way to be an activist in the modern age is to use both in tandem.
When injustice strikes, which it will, any one of us may be brave enough to stand and combat it. With this being said, we hope that you now have a better understanding of how the internet has changed the way society can protest and how to use these new methods of protest in order to promote your own work in the future. With these new methods of communication and a bit of passion, anyone can leave their mark on the world for the better.